It's trash day in my neighborhood.
In addition to actual trash, people put out boxes containing anything they don't need anymore. Old electronics, pots and pans, whatever.
My plan is to walk around, see what people are getting rid of, and see if any of it has any musical potential.
So here is what I found in the trash. It is one of these classic lamps. I'm pretty excited about this find, not just because I can always use another lamp, but it's got these springs. So I think it's gonna reverberate really, really well. I'm gonna try to make some sort of makeshift reverb tank out of this. But before I do, I'm just gonna mic it up and see how it sounds.
So here's my setup. The first thing I discovered is that the clip that attaches the lamp to the table is very, very rickety. Instead, I've opted to use this tiny clamp to attach the whole thing to the table directly. In terms of microphone, I'm just using a cheap clip-on piezo sensor, which I have going into this ART preamp. So the first thing I'm noticing is that this thing sounds amazing. I can hit any part of it and it will resonate for a really long time. Check it out. Here's what it sounds like when I use a violin bow on the lampshade. I can also run my fingers along the springs. In fact, I don't even really need to hit the lamp itself in order to have it make a noise. I can hit the table. I can hit the clamp that I use to attach it to the table. And because of the built-in reverb of this particular object, all these sounds fit really well into recorded music. Here's a quick collage that I made by slicing up this video.
Okay, we've now seen that this lamp can be used as a percussion instrument. It's time to try to make an actual reverb tank out of it.
Spring reverb tanks are surprisingly simple devices.
Before we can talk about how they work, it's worth remembering how sound itself works. In general, we're able to hear sound because of air molecules. Something such as a person talking or a musical instrument causes the molecules to vibrate, and they cause their neighboring molecules to vibrate, and so on and so forth, until finally the air molecules right next to our ears are vibrating, and that's what gets picked up by our eardrums. Spring reverbs are pretty much the same, except that instead of air molecules, we're dealing with a spring. On one end, we introduce a vibration, the wave propagates down the twists and turns of the coil, and then we pick it up at the other end with some sort of a sensor or microphone. To make my lamp spring vibrate, I'm going to use something called the transducer. A transducer is a lot like a loudspeaker. The way a traditional loudspeaker works is it has this central element that goes in and out. It vibrates really fast, many times a second. That central element is hooked up to a cardboard cone, which helps move the air molecules next to the speaker, which produces the sound. Transducers work the exact same way, except that there's no paper cone. They're not trying to shake air molecules, they're just trying to move a plate back and forth. In this case, the plate is this clear plastic thing. Since this is basically just a speaker, I'm going to need some way of amplifying it. I'm going to use this super cheap Lapie amplifier that I always use for my projects. And the final piece of the puzzle, the way that I'm actually going to pick up the sound, is this piezo sensor. As you can see, I've invested in one of these classic laboratory stands in order to be able to do these kinds of experiments. This is actually the first time I'm using it. I'm going to clamp the piezo sensor onto the stand. In order to connect the piezo sensor to the spring, I've soldered a stiff piece of wire to one side of it. And I'm going to stretch that across to the bottom of the spring and wrap it around the coil. Okay, now let's put the transducer on. I'm also attaching a piece of wire here that will stretch from the vibrating plate over to the top of the spring. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Let's give this thing a spin. I'm just going to put like a simple piano loop through it. Here's what the dry piano sounds like. And here's what it sounds like going through the lamp. And here's what they sound like together. wow, I cannot believe that that worked. It's not the most beautiful sounding reverb. It's a little bit tinny, and the delay time is very, very short. I am beginning to see why when you buy a reverb tank, the spring is way longer and much, much floppier. I think that probably adds to the reverb time. But nonetheless, I'm definitely calling this experiment a success. I have a bunch of other things I want to try with it. I'm going to switch out the transducer, try different microphones. In the meantime, I've turned everything that I recorded for this video into a free sample library, which you can download. There's a link in the description to this YouTube video. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could hit like. And if you haven't done so already, now is a great time to subscribe. I've got a bunch of videos in the pipeline. So if you want to see more videos like this, definitely ding that bell. See you next time.